Welcome to the Author Show, where we present new authors and books. From fiction to self-help and everything in between, you'll find it all here. To watch the TV version of our program, visit authorswebtv.com. That's authorswebtv.com. And now, let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming the program author Jenni Eden, and Jenni is the author of How to Plant Positivity to Sow Seeds for Success. Jenni is a bold and imaginative artist, a life coach, published author, and singer. Her key emphasis is about developing a positive mindset and encourages others to do the same. Based in Oman, she runs Planting Positivity workshops and is creating a dance called the Awakening Dance. Jenni, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Don. How are you?
Great. Well, let's start with the big question. Tell us about this book, please.
Well, it's a self-help guide for anyone wanting to improve their current circumstances. It's split into 7 simple chapters, all related to a gardening theme. So there's planting positivity, watering positivity, growing, sustaining, weeding, and pruning positivity. And the final chapter is blooming positivity. It's a simple guide to manifesting. It's everything that I've done over the last 10 years. And it's like a recipe book helping to build on each previous chapter.
Who did you write this book for specifically?
The book is for people who believe there's something more to life and want to take the responsibility and ownership of how to achieve that something more. It's for people who don't want to get caught in a rut, people who want to have passion and purpose in their life. When I started about the whole manifesting process, there were a lot of big names. This is going back about 10 years, and they all talked about the early struggles, but their courses were so expensive I couldn't afford them. So I said when I had worked it out that I was going to make my learning more accessible to others so that more people could get to feel as good as I do.
Now, would you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you could say runs throughout the book?
Yeah, the underlying message basically, it's one about finding your own fear. One of the things I learned was there was so much I was trying to achieve, and yet what kept sabotaging my efforts was my own personal fear. And I believe that there's so many of us that have fear of being worthy, fear of not being good enough. So my book is all about how we can recognize what that fear is that trips us up and what we can do about removing it so we then really are free to be the best that we can be.
So if you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
I think the most important thing is how to get rid of that fear. I'm fairly certain that a lot of people know that they've got things that they are sabotaging themselves with, but they don't always know how to get rid of it. And I share a technique that the universe brought directly to me when I asked that very question. So there's a how to get rid of those fears. And when I've worked with people and they've followed the same technique and they've gone through the process, they have just unleashed amazing things for themselves and their lives have changed as a result. So I think the how to get rid of the fear is one of the most single important things in the book. It's very like The Secret. The Secret talks a lot about how you could manifest and where to put yourself, but it didn't really talk about the things that would sabotage you. So that's what I've developed more in this book.
If you could compare this book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
Well, it would be The Secret. I was working on a lot of these ideas back between 2003 and 2006. And where I lived in the Middle East, we'd heard nothing about The Secret at that time. But I was getting information from the universe about how to create more gratitude, how to be more purposeful, how to concentrate on the things that you love. And they are core things that run through The Secret. And The Secret is an incredible book and it's an incredible film. So much so that I thought there's not much point my putting anything down on paper because it's already been done. But what I have realized is we all have a unique voice and we all have a unique way of saying something. And if people can't access it from one channel, maybe they can access it from another. And so I've put down my experiences, my learning, what I've discovered, with a hope that it just might help, someone else to get where they want to be as well.
Why did you decide to write a book?
Well, it was never my intention to write a book. My whole goal initially was to be an internationally successful artist and to have my work appreciated around the world. So that was my main game. But what I discovered through painting again and then selling the painting was I was just so grateful. And the more I was grateful, the more things I had to be grateful for. And I realized that when you're grateful, your life becomes great and full. And having been a creative person and having suffered great highs as well as great lows, what I started to develop was a real balance, more of a control over my emotions. And I just thought, when I talked to people about what I was doing and why I was doing it, they wanted to know more. And so I started to run what I call the Planting Positivity workshops. And people started to hear about it and share it with their families back home. And there was nothing that I could give to them at that time that would allow them to access the information. So the idea of the book was born with a view to sharing my Planting Positivity workshops.
So have you had any success with clients?
Yes, I have. I've been really blessed. I've worked with some really lovely people. It's been such a blessing for me to work with people and see that when they get it, when they're able to understand what it is that I'm trying to share with them, then I see them starting to really gain momentum in the direction that they want their lives to go in. And I've had people that have come off medication for depression and anxiety. I've had people that used to be hospitalized when they went home, having actually just been able to achieve several weeks at home without the stress. I've also been able to work with people who have wanted to achieve something creatively, whether it be to write or to be a photographer or to be an artist. And because of my creativity, I've been able to encourage them to just basically go grab it by the horns. And then I've seen them have exhibitions and flourish. So it's been amazing. I've had some great success stories from people.
Why do you use purple as a color theme?
Well, that's a good question. Through doing the painting, I obviously resonate with lots of different colors, and I'm also a trained yoga instructor, and there are several chakras in the body, energy centers in the body, and purple is considered to be like the higher mind, higher consciousness. Purple is also used by priests and kings and queens in the olden days. It's regal, it's rich, it's luxurious, and it's also a very resonating color. So I want us all to feel rich. I want us all to resonate with their own sense of power, and so purple seemed a good choice of color to relate to positivity and to relate to that mindset.
Do you think that teenagers should read this book?
I would love teenagers to read this book. If they were open to it, it would be so good. And the reason being that everything that I know now in my 40s, there was an element that I knew this when I was a teenager, but I didn't have the courage to stand up for what I felt and what I believed. And so really, I kind of almost lost 20 years of my life conforming to other people's opinions and other people's views. And so I really would love it if teenagers today could just access the sense of their own power and realize that there is so much more that they can do for themselves by just altering their perceptions and changing their thought processes, so that teenagers could go off and start generating spectacular lives for themselves and leading by example, because at the end of the day, they're our future. And if teenagers can start seeing that manifesting and the law of attraction works and have success with creating their lives, then the whole of us are going to have a better future. So yes, I'd love teenagers to read it.
You suggest a chapter a week. Why is that?
The reason being that when we start to make changes in our life, when we start to implement things that are going to change either our behaviors or our thought processes, it takes a while for us to learn a practice and to make something habitual. And when something starts to become habitual, our mind starts to sabotage those effects because it doesn't want us to change. It doesn't want us to alter. It wants us to stay the same. So the reason I suggest a chapter a week is because you have built in then that reflecting time, that practicing time, and you're making these practices your own. And so in those weeks, you will start to experience your own personal successes, which will give you the strength to keep on going when the going gets rough, so that you will know how to attack the fear and remove the fear and release the fear, because you've had already times when you felt very, very good, because you're building it up over a period of time.
What's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
I think the most rewarding experience is when I hear how someone has read the book and then it has completely transformed their life. It doesn't happen straight away. It can be months and months later, and someone will contact me and they'll say, "Hey, remember me?" And then they'll go on to explain all the ways that their life has changed and how they feel genuinely happy and how they know that they're in control of that happiness, that it's not something that's just going to be whisked away by an external event or by an external person. They know they've generated it themselves, and they know they can continue to generate that bone-deep happiness. And, recently I had an acquaintance beg me to see their friend. And at the time I was so busy that, I thought, well, I can give them maybe half an hour. In the end, we met for 90 minutes, and I talked with them, and I handed her my book. And she was going to leave the country, and it was very possible I'd never see her again. But about 3 or 4 months later, she emailed me, and everything in her life had changed. She was much happier, she was authentic, and as a result, her relationships had improved as well. And to me, it was such a good feeling, and it's so rewarding to know that my work has gone and helped someone else achieve something wonderful for themselves.
In your opinion, who should buy your book?
I think that people who should buy the book are people who want to create their life, people who want to take their power and use their power and not be afraid of their power, people who have always known that there's something more to life but have not always been able to work out how to access that. And I think that it's for people who want to feel genuine happiness, and for that happiness not to come from a bottle or from a pill. And it's up to people to take the chances and to grab life by the horns, but to know how to do that and how to get rid of the fears that try to trip them up. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The book is out there, and people have to want it and then want to read it and work through it. So it's people that are determined and ready to work.
Time is getting very short, so the most important question, where can readers find you and your book?
Well, I have a website, and that's www.jennieden.com, and that's Jenni ending in an I, not a Y. And my book is available on Amazon.com.uk, all of the various Amazon sites at the moment.
Well, it's been just great. Our guest today has been Jenni Eden, and she's the author of How to Plant Positivity to Sow Seeds for Success. Jenni, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure, Don.
This is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Please share this interview with your family and friends so that they too may have the opportunity to discover our guest and her work. And why not spread the word on social media? We look forward to you joining us next time for another great book and another great author on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. To contact us, call toll-free 1-877-955-8800. That's 877-55-8800. Or visit theauthorshow.com, theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.